have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host Coale, and with me as always, I have my good friend and co-host Aaron. Aaron, I am so happy you traveled all the way out here to meet up for this episode, my friend.
Yeah, I just got back from camping. I'm sunburnt, I'm sunscreened, and I'm ready to watch the silver screen.
Excellent. And did you happen to see any comets?
Comets?
Yeah, comets.
Oh, no, I wasn't. My eyes weren't skyward. Although, if I did see one, I probably would have mistaken it for the artillery that was being fired over our heads the entire time. I'm not even joking. Where I camped, apparently, is the other half of the refuge is just a military base, Fort Sill, and we were driving through it, and there were just signs that said, artillery may be fired overhead. And I was like, that's weird. And then all through the night, we were hearing these booms that sounded like thunder. And I assumed they're just the artillery that was exploding in the distance.
Oh my god, that's terrible. That's terrible, dude.
It was just mildly funny, really. We were like, what is that? Is that thunder? But it was like, no, it's beautiful, gorgeous, cloudless night. It was the artillery.
Well, that's good. That's good, because otherwise, I think there might have been even bigger problems if he did see comets. You know, because Night of the Comet.
Yeah,
that was somehow my jank ass transition into talking about this movie. So, this movie is a movie that I only knew about in recent years because one of the things that got me into podcasting was the horror movie podcast, which Dave Dr. Shock Becker has been a part of for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But one of the hosts of the series, Gilman Joel, talked about this movie and it being one of his favorite 80s flicks and everything, because it came out in 1984, but I didn't hear too much about it, and the parts I did hear about it, I'll keep it minimized there, but it's one of those things where I was curious to kind of check it out. It's like, okay, that seems like a fun time. It definitely kind of needed something a little bit more goofy, as it were, and everything. So, plus I love 80s vibes and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch the new Lisa Frankenstein movie that came out?
That's fun. Was it fun?
It was fun. It was very fun and very 80s AF. Like 112%. Pink and blue is jam-packed in every scene. It just screams an 80s film and everything. So awesome. My quick review of Lisa Frankenstein that nobody asked for is, if you love the 80s, you'll probably love this. Just obviously don't go in thinking you're going to get like Kubrick or something like groundbreaking. It's just a fun little flick, you know, heralding the 80s as a good vibe year and everything. So, yeah, what is your thought on 80s aesthetic and everything? Just sort of the 80s vibes, because we've seen quite a few films from the 80s and everything, all wavering in difference and tonality.
Right.
So I didn't know what your thoughts were.
Dude, I love 80s films. I love 80s generally. It's a fun time. One of my favorite bars to go to in town is retro 80s themed, I guess, the barcade that we have locally. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the decade after the 80s. But
Same.
It's still, so it's not really nostalgia, but it's like just, I don't know. I love any sort of, I guess you call it a period piece. But I don't know.
Yes.
any sort of set in time dealio that's, like where you can tell, like, oh yeah, even if it's like even the 70s or even, like fucking the 20s or some shit, I'll be like, this is a 20s ass movie.
Yes.
I see the brimmed hats and the trench coats as the 20s. I don't know. I love whenever you can kind of tell that there's an era. But the 80s are just fun, squealy, colorful, big hair, everything. You can't not like the 80s.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for this film, in all honesty. From what it seems like it'll be like a fun flick from the 80s, because I also have that attachment to the 80s, despite not being born in the 80s, but it just kind of came with the fact that, my parents obviously grew up during the 80s and everything, because they were born in like the 70s and everything. So so definitely curious about this film. I think we're both kind of like uncertain about what it is, but
I don't know.
I think we're just both hoping for a grand old time and everything.
Yeah.
So everybody break out your little eclipse glasses, because we'll be right back whenever we go see The Night of the Comet.
Woo!
Why did I laugh like that? And we just got back from seeing Night of the Comet here, and we're still alive to some degree, I believe. But
Yeah,
Aaron,
yeah.
what are your overall feelings right now after that experience?
I don't know what I expected. It wasn't that.
No, me neither, buddy. Me neither. Although I will say the one thing that was the checklist of 80s did get checked off.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a lot of 80s checks you could check off.
Yes, so at the very least, that aspect, it did not disappoint.
Oh, yeah.
But other aspects, questionable. Definitely was a wild ass ride, I probably would say.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a weirdly feel good movie for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess I'm just going to talk about the plot, dude.
Yeah, let's do the
So,
plot.
Night of the Comet focuses on a big event happening, that there's going to be a comet basically shooting across the sky. Yeah, whoa! Doing that.
Everybody's gonna go out and look at it. You gotta see
Yes,
the comet.
except for the fact that the event ends up, spoiler alert, wiping out everybody.
They get raptured, bro.
Yes, except for a few lone survivors that we run into. And in this newfound apocalyptic world, they have to figure out what to do. And I guess there's also something else bigger brewing. I guess.
Something looming.
Something like that. I think apocalypse films are always fun. It's just always fun, just always trying to think about what you do in apocalyptic situation. Although this is the most barren apocalypse I've seen amongst a lot of them and
They
everything.
just didn't have any budget to put empty cars on the roads, I guess.
In LA, nonetheless.
No, exactly.
Because the film takes place in LA, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Whenever it comes to the story, like, the idea is perfectly fine, but the way they pace the story and then they try to add a bit more to it ends up falling a little bit flat, because they basically have like a group of scientists that's revealed trying to research it. And I was like, oh, okay, this will help add up to something. And yeah, it does something.
It does. I mean, it's a movie, it's a plot. The plot does accumulate to something, but by the end of it, I don't know that I was satisfied.
No, I would agree. Definitely the plot was not to my satisfaction, unfortunately for them. It was just definitely a lot of like, okay, there's at least going to be more plot showing up, and if not plot, then at least some enjoyment or whatever. And even in the enjoyment, like, just stupid funny factor, I felt like there was definitely a lot of moments of that, definitely a lot, but then it would also just kind of drag out a little bit there, so you're just kind of left wanting more. So I don't know, definitely, always a good idea for a premise there, but they didn't even dive into the why of it more. So they briefly talk about why all this happened and everything, but it's literally like, I think it's one of those things that, in all honesty, by the end of the film, I didn't care what the explanation was.
Right.
Because I'm just like, I'm left with nothing, and I feel like if they try to explain everything right now, it would be falling on deaf ears by this point in the movie. But it was still tolerable, just the idea of the movie and everything. It's just sort of the execution where towards the end of the film, I was just like, okay. Yeah, all right. That was a film.
Yeah, it was definitely like a pretty comedy slanted film where the comedy was not always hitting. In
That's
fact, a lot of the times it was not.
that's always a thing that always unfortunately really sucks. Like if the comedy sucks, then yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they had jokes.
Yeah,
We just weren't always laughing.
no, for sure. And it's so bad too because like I would say like the film has like three main actors there, and it's kind of promising because you think they're going to be like silly 80s goofy and everything. Especially at the beginning, I had a lot of hope for the character Regina Belmont, played by Catherine Mary Stewart, because she works at a movie theater, except she's spending her time playing the arcade.
She's a gamer girl.
Yes, a gamer girl.
80s gamer girl.
But also at the same point, anytime that she's put up with like a threat or danger, instead of like doing like the freak out normal thing, she just kind of resorts to violence and then just walks away.
Just kung fu's, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, not literally,
which
but yeah.
honestly kind of made it more funny, in all honesty.
It was. Yeah, she was really like the 80s version of a manic pixie dream girl, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think she was, because
she was like a male ideal of like, she was like, she made a point in one part of the movie to be like, I'm 18, you know, like it's like somebody wrote her to be exactly 18, gorgeous woman who plays video games all day, sleep with anyone casually, and just like beats the shit out of people and loves guns. I was like, all right,
that is a freaking good observation there. Definitely,
this is some nerd's ideal woman.
Yes, exactly. Which is kind of funny to see because you don't normally see that, especially something like that early on and everything.
Yeah, but it, I mean, I liked the character, but I thought the execution was really ham-fisted in that direction.
Oh my gosh,
incredibly cheesy.
Yeah, definitely. And the same thing can be said about her sister Samantha, played by Kelly Maroney. She is like so uncaring about the apocalypse happening. She's just sort of like,
They took Ditzy Blonde to an extreme, so much of an extreme that they found an excuse to have her in a cheerleader outfit for most of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's also pink and blue.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's definitely lots of pink and blue hues. Not as much as Lisa Frankenstein, but for a film that took place in 1984, definitely a lot of it there.
Very
for sure.
80s.
And I felt like both actresses did their characters well, but there'd be points that I felt like it felt like they were trying to purposely fit in stuff that they're like, well, we have a lot more film we need to shoot. How do we elongate this? How do we do that? Because there's definitely a lot of times where I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And some of the stuff they do to elongate or add extra scares or anything like that, it was honestly baffling at some points there.
True.
Where I was just like, what in God's name? Because that's the interesting thing. It's a horror movie, you know, but at the same point, it's not really a horror movie. There wasn't.
It's much more everything else. Like there's like it's like a feel good 80s. Trying to be comedy, with a little splash of horror.
Yes, I would agree. It's definitely like that, and I don't know. Like I said, I felt like the character ideas they had were great and fine. It's just they ended up stopping any character development whatsoever, and they're just kind of coasting there. So unfortunately, I felt like it dragged on the film's part, but I don't even feel like it's the actresses' fault, either of them. I feel like it's just them working the best they can with the script and everything.
Oh, yeah, you can tell there are a few lines in there that were just like, should have been rewritten or reshot, but they just didn't, and they just made those poor actresses read those lines the best they could.
Oh, gosh, yes. And, oh my god, what is it? Freaking, I will say one of the actors that I was definitely like, okay, yeah, he's definitely the weak link among these three is Robert Beltran playing Hector Gomez.
Hector is not amazing in this role.
He is not amazing as an actor, and his character that was written for him is even less so. He is literally just a guy.
He's a dude.
He's a dude, and he's also... oh my gosh, he's also there just to help out the main two characters.
It is.
That's it.
Yeah, which is funny, because I will say the film does mostly focus on these two girls. They have a lot of interactions together. I will say, like, for a movie that passes the Bechdel test, it is not a feminist masterpiece.
No.
But I was watching it, and I just, like, not that I think about the Bechdel test all the time, but, like, there's so many scenes with the two girls not talking about men, which, for those you don't know, is the Bechdel test. Like, in a movie, are there two female characters that have a conversation with each other? Not about a boy, and that's all the Bechdel test is. And you'd be surprised most movies do not pass that test. But this one does. But it's also just like there are just scenes where they're changing for no reason into lingerie, and like it's very sexualized.
Yeah.
Though she's in an upskirt, like fucking tiny ass cheerleading skirt the whole movie. Like it's obviously not. It's obviously not a feminist masterpiece, but I was like, this does pass the Bechdel test.
God, but yeah, I would definitely say, unfortunately, there are conversations that would also add further failure to the Bechdel test, as you're saying. Because literally, like, one of the main conflicts that they try doing but immediately drop is just the fact that there's two girls and then there's only one guy. And, you know, the younger sister is complaining that her older sister gets all the guys, essentially. And and also everybody is praising Hector for being cute. Like,
oh yeah. That's the everybody. It's so weird. I feel like whoever wrote this movie was actually just the actor that played Hector, and he cast himself in that role. It was like, what if I was the last guy on Earth and everybody wanted me? But I have no personality, so that's the only way every girl would want me.
In terms of process of elimination, baby. So yeah, unfortunately, I wouldn't say there's any like characters that stand out. Besides, again, what I would argue is the main girl, Regina.
Yeah.
But even then, I feel like comparatively to the badasses of horror, especially, there's definitely better selection.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
From that. And I mean, there's other characters that pop up, but they're about as deep as a Dixie cup. Like they are, they are definitely shallow as a puddle whenever it comes to character development. They are just there to further what not really a big plot there is. Like it has a great synopsis about like, yeah, apocalypse. Majority of people have just turned to dust and everything. What do now?
I do feel like, and I will try to do this in spoilers, I do feel like you could narrow down this plot to just the important parts and it would sound like a much better movie than it was. But, no. Yeah, no, they really just kind of fumbled a setup. Like, they really loosely were trying to do some shit that just, like, they cobbled together. But, like, I feel like there could have been something there. But...
yeah, unfortunately, yeah, not a lot there. Again, I would definitely argue the film's biggest strengths is that it is an 80s film. You get the 80s music on blast and everything. You get the 80s aesthetic, and I think that's honestly one of the stronger things. Like, I think whenever they head to the radio station, there's like crazy neon lights everywhere, and they have like, you know, black tile and a pink sink there with blue. Like they went all out aesthetically, and I think that's definitely good because even whenever they're driving outside, there's always like a red hue in the sky essentially there. So like there's definitely a lot of good representation of the 80s that actually did come out in the 80s.
There's even a dress up montage to girls just want to have fun.
That was great. Like as soon as the music went on blast, I'm like, yeah, okay, yes, thank you for making, like, it literally almost seems like self-aware, like we need to make this as 80s as possible.
Right.
But it also was released in 1984, so that was just what they thought was cool.
Right.
Therefore, why we have that. So that was the thing that I was happy with, is the fact that I'm like, yep, I felt like I got my 80s feel. It's just, unfortunately, with the movie itself, there wasn't too much. Aside from, again, just a lot of goofy moments. There's definitely a lot of silly, over-the-top moments there.
Yeah.
So that's something I could compliment.
Yeah, I do feel like this movie overall is probably in the territory of good bad movie. You know what I mean? Because it is kind of goofy. I do feel like what kills it from being like a really good bad movie is the pacing is just really slow, and even some of the over the top goofy moments are like just sort of you're just sort of numb to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they definitely pulled some surprises. Not gonna
Oh,
lie.
yeah. There's some...
Like, even whenever we thought we were numb to the campiness, they would just do something and we're like, well, this was not on my bingo card.
Right.
This was nowhere in my foresight at all whatsoever to occur and everything. But yeah, definitely a poorly paced film, I would argue there. But I could understand how this could gain a cult following.
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense. I definitely don't, it's not like one of those things where like, you know, I don't know, like one of those things where I don't understand the hype. It's like, I could understand it, but unfortunately I don't think I was able to really become infected with the campiness of the film.
Yeah.
I was able to enjoy it, but it didn't quite submerge me in it there.
I feel like this movie is sort of carried by the vibes, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to write home about when you talk about the acting, the characters, the dialogue, the plot. Like, there's really nothing there. But whenever you talk about just this, like, the fucking idea and the 80s vibes, that's like what is charging this movie.
Yes, definitely the strongest thing keeping this film from continuing and everything, because if it didn't have those things, it definitely would falter further in my eyes at the very least, feeling like, you know, it's like basically 2 to 4 times the film Leprechaun was representing the 90s, except that was only just minuscule and everything with Jennifer Aniston. Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can mention, but it's all in spoilers, I would argue, and everything.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Would you say there's anything else we could mention about the film without spoiling?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, the music's great because it's all 80s music. I don't know. There's nothing to write home about when it comes to cinematography.
I guess another criticism is the fact that with the apocalypse films, it's always like, you know, I don't know, I can't think of the term, but you know how there's like man versus nature, man versus environment. Something like that.
The conflicts,
I felt like the conflicts, they were there, but it wasn't that present enough. It just kind of felt empty. Like they would randomly be like, "Oh, there's this thing," but it's gone.
Dude, I feel like if you take the script and you crunch it down to like half a page on Word or whatever, just the important parts, the conflicts are there. You know what I mean? There's a conflict, spoiler alert, within the fucking research organization.
Yes.
There's a conflict even whenever they are out and about and in the streets because there's some horror elements and what's the horror happening. You know what I mean? Like, those conflicts exist, but they just don't feel impactful because of how goofy. Like, you never really feel like they're in any danger at any point. Therefore, you don't feel like there's any conflict at any point because that's just goofy and really slow.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, in all honesty. So that's kind of a little unfortunate and everything, but, you know, dims the brakes and everything.
Which is crazy because the stakes of the movie is that humanity goes extinct, but you never really feel that at any point. Yeah.
Like they keep talking like, oh, we could die any day or whatever, but it just, there's no feel of survival. It literally just feels like they're just kind of, like they're just a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah.
As appropriate as it is, they're just like, okay, like they're never worrying about food or anything. Not that I felt like I needed to see it, but it just... there just felt like no urgency. Like they just literally were more bored during the apocalypse than they were actually feeling in danger.
And for a movie where you're supposed to see the struggle, there's no struggle. I mean, the end of the world seems like a pretty horrific time to go through. Not that the movie has to be horrific or whatever, but at the same time, you don't see any element of struggle. They tried to write it in at some points, like, my friends were dead or whatever, but they don't even really care at that point. When they're doing that whole because the acting is not really selling it either, and like to keep it up buck with you, but it's you don't feel the conflict, you don't feel the struggle, you don't feel the pain. So like those moments where they're lighthearted and joking around is just like the entire movie. You don't get anything to really contrast that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they do talk about it in one scene, but then afterwards it's like literally they just move past it or whatever. But I don't know, dude. There's definitely a lot of crazy moments I want to mention, but that's all going to be in spoilers. Is there anything else you want to say before diving into spoilers?
No, I don't think so. I'll just say this movie is so like discombobulated and shit that like we gotta dissect it in spoilers.
Yes, I would definitely say that. Well, with discombobulated shit being the preface before the review, what do you rate the film?
I mean, we've kind of talked about this is a vibes-based movie. It's a great 80s aesthetic, but really doesn't have much else going for it. There is some really goofy shit that we laugh at, but it's mostly camp factor, and even the camp isn't like as somebody that just came back from camping, there's better camp out there. But it's a movie. It's a vibe. It's just not a good one. It's not terrible, so I'm giving it like a little bit below average score. I'm gonna give it. It's a 4, but it's like a really low one.
Yeah.
This is a 4 for me. It really fails in some key departments. Like, I can handle bad acting if the plot's good. I can handle bad pacing if the dialogue's well written. I can handle any of these elements, but almost every element is below average, with the exception of the vibe.
Yeah. Bro, I think I'm with you on the same page, because I was definitely like, especially like, I think I was probably only 2/3 of the way through the film. I was just looking up at the clock, like
I checked my phone a couple times.
I was like, how much longer is this film going for? And it wasn't even like I was like hating it. It was just like it turned into a bit of a slog towards the end there. But yeah, definitely, if all you want from this film is just 80s vibes and everything, yeah,
it delivers that.
It does. And definitely, if you like, it's a good time capsule of a film that was released in 1984 doing everything that was cool. And so it's ironic to watch that then like Lisa Frankenstein 40 years later, that I feel like is a better movie. Not the best movie, but definitely a better movie than this, and also captured those all same vibes. So it's very ironic seeing both those films back to back. But yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't reach the campiness level that I want. Because again, I'm like, there's definitely a lot of campy moments that I will remember that blindsided me. But I feel like camp, there's an art to it. You just can't throw in something and just expect it to take off.
Right.
But overall, it was still like a fine flick, just fine overall. And so that's why I'm with you, Aaron, and rated it also at a 4 there. There's still a lot more value to it than other films I've seen on this podcast.
Yeah.
At the same point, though, I don't know how quickly I'm going to come back to this film in particular. So, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. Glad I still checked it out just to see what it all was about and everything, but definitely it's if obviously we had to say it's a pass from both of us there, unless you just only care about 80s aesthetic. If you only care about it, you'll probably enjoy the film just fine, but otherwise so a little disappointing, but you know.
Or if you're just incredibly squeamish but interested in horror movies and you want to really, really take it easy, maybe this one, because there's just the most bare line minimum you could have to still qualify as horror.
Yeah, because it's like PG-13, I believe, but there's only like one scene that I was a little unnerved by, and it's whenever like one of the zombies is grabbing the gal and like she's peeling the flesh off his arm.
Yeah, that is a little gruesome.
But aside from that, that's honestly it. The violence is pretty freaking tame, surprisingly. So yeah, definitely good intro thing to throw on and everything to horror and whatnot. But yeah, let's talk about the camp and the spoilers. Definitely a lot of moments we could bring up and everything. So Aaron, what is the first thing you want to dissect?
So much to dissect. I'm going to start with something of completely not importance. Dude, they hit us with the double dream sequence.
That was like
so annoying.
infuriating. So infuriating so much. Oh my gosh, because already
It didn't serve any purpose either.
no, it just served for scares. They were just legit like, yeah, we need to make this scary or whatever, but we're going to commit to it twice.
Yeah, no, I honestly feel like they had two scenes they wanted to put in the movie that didn't make any sense, and so they just doubled up on a dream.
That like
They were like, what if they were zombie policemen that pulled her over? And then they did that. And then they were like, and then what if she got naked in a bathroom?
oh my gosh, yeah, they totally did that for like, this is for the fans, you know, doing that or whatever. Oh my, that was just one of those things where it's already one thing to have it was all just a dream. I feel like that's a very, very specific trope that can work, but if it doesn't, it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
And to not only do that, but to do it twice, it doesn't even feel clever. It just feels annoying. Like, it's the equivalent of like a cheap jump scare, I feel like.
Right. It's almost like they were trying to be like, oh, we know that this is annoying, so what if we did it twice to really just flip the script? And it just ended up being annoying twice.
It was just dumb. It was dumb.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of it. The only reason, like, the only, like, good that came out of it is, again, I think they just wanted these ideas there of like, oh, what if we had police officers pull them over, but it turns out they're zombies. And then that's whenever the one scene whenever she's peeling the flesh off the bone, where I was like, oh wow, that's kind of a gruesome effect. Then wakes up from the dream, goes to the awesome bathroom. I do love the bathroom.
It's a sick bathroom.
Yeah, but then she's like literally like soaking paper towels and is just removing all her articles of clothing essentially down to her undies and bra essentially. And then lo and behold, a zombie cop comes up behind her, grabs her, and ends the dream. And it's just like, oh my god, bro, just seriously stop.
Right.
Seriously stop.
There's no justification for it besides to like illustrate that this is stressing her out because she has a rash, I guess. But it's like the loosest of justifications.
It is. It really is. It's just, I don't know. She's just a ditzy blonde girl in an apocalypse. Like, no matter how much they try to add layers to it, that's it.
Right.
I will say, like, one of the funniest scenes that involved her was at the beginning of the film, where it's like, I guess the stepmom or something like that. It's basically demanding that Regina return home or whatever, and Samantha is basically like bad mouthing her. So then like, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love all the setup that they did about like their parents and that home situation. None of it matters because they get like deleted by the Comet in the first 5 minutes. But,
yeah, like they make the stepmom like one of the over the top most evil people ever. And whenever she's like mad at Samantha, she gives her a slap, and you're just like, okay, yeah, it definitely makes sense. Wasn't expecting the slap back from Samantha. Then I was like, oh my gosh. But then, as soon as you think that's done or whatever, not Regina,
Doris.
the mom, straight up punches Samantha in the face, flips over the couch, and I'm like, holy hell.
And, like, knocks one of her teeth loose, apparently, because that's the next scene you see in Samantha. She's like, she punched me so hard, my tooth is loose, and my dental's not going to cover it.
Yeah, doing that. But that was, like, a moment of just, like, being over the top to where I just found it funny by that point there, just how quickly it escalated to that point. So there's like small nuggets like that of just over the top random stuff that does stick with me, and I'm just like, what the hell am I watching here?
Yeah, not to mention none of it was done well, you know what I mean? Like the slap was like, it's all like obviously fake.
Yeah.
All of the fight scenes actually in this movie are like just, I don't even want to say choreographed because they look just like improv bits. You know what I mean?
They do, because like that's just kind of the crazy thing about it is like whenever Regina steps outside the theater, which has a whole funny lead up there. She walks out to the alley because she basically gets locked out of the theater.
Right.
Which I thought was hilarious. And then there's like that zombie person approaching her. And then she decides to toss the car keys back and then take a swing. And then they end up getting dragged into the cardboard, hits him with a 2x4. And then she grabs the keys and then drives off. It's just so oddly paced. And you never see the guy again. It's just sort of like, yeah, okay, glad we moved away from that problem.
Yeah, well, she hits the zombie dude and drives away.
Yeah,
I guess he just slowly turned into dust later or whatever.
I
Because the scientists explained that the zombies are the ones that only got a little bit exposed to the comet, and they are also turning into the red dust, which is causing all the red skies and all that shit. They're getting calcified, turned into pure calcium, but just slowly. But they only have like 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah, I'm doing that. So I am appreciative that they do explain it a little bit, but it does end up feeling just a little bit weak.
Yeah, it is weak.
I will say I was glad that the dude that Regina slept with was offed immediately. Because I was like, if I had to be stuck with this dude the entire film, I'm gonna lose my marbles.
He was kind of a douche, and that was like the only that's the only kill you see, like, for real. Like, as far as a horror kill goes, is he opens the door and the zombie there and hits him with a wrench, and like that's it.
Yeah, which was honestly funny because, again, he's such a jerk or whatever. But then as soon as Regina figures out, like, oh, he's dead, it's just like, okay. Like, just nonchalant, just another day in the life of being a teen girl.
They do try to give a scene where she's upset, whenever they go to the radio station after that. Like, she goes home, she picks up Samantha, tells Samantha that everybody's dead because she hasn't realized it yet because she's getting ready for cheer practice, which is why I'm in a cheerleader outfit for most of the movie. They go drive to the place. They find the dude. What's his name? Hector.
Hector, yeah.
He pulls a gun on him. Yada yada. And then and then they find out. He's like, but Billy or whatever his name was. He must have gotten eaten by the zombie because now we know zombies. So then she goes in and she's sad. And then Hector knocks on the door and is like, hey.
I forgot about that scene.
We better get along. He's like, it has negative riz. But,
yeah, he does have negative riz.
But somehow manages. I mean, I feel like it's literally just like desperation, like making her be like, oh, this is the only guy I've ever seen that's alive now. So, he's kind of cute. But he's just like, you ever use a gun? Nice moves, Hector. Like, this girl walks up, and then he's like, this girl walks up, she's crying about this dude that she was kind of with or whatever, and then he's like, so you guys going steady or like great comfort, and then she just drops all of it because she's who cares? Yeah. It's never mentioned again. Nothing pre-Comet is really ever mentioned again after that point. They're just like, wow.
Yeah, and it's just filled with like random bits of them doing random stuff, like Samantha getting bored and deciding to play radio DJ, and it's only served as a way for the scientists to know they're survivors in this part of the city and everything, which I get, but it's also just like they just do random acts just cause, essentially.
Right. None of it has any sort of real survival instinct. Even whenever Samantha, the only one out of the three, thought to like broadcast a custom message on the radio instead of just letting the tapes play. There was just like, hello, is this thing on? So, new rules. If you're 10, you can drink now, but only with the 90. Like, these were the jokes that they were doing. But, like, even after they get a call from these researchers, it's like, you don't think to use the radio as, like, a way to call for other survivors or, like horror apocalypse logic was applied. They were just like, all right, we got them to the apocalypse. Now, what would they do? The fun shopping spree scene. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's only, like, done just because Hector leaves because he's like, I gotta go check on my mom. And it's just like, well, what? Like, she's probably dead. And he's like, well, I still gotta check. And so he goes off, and that's just a weird little thing he goes on.
What was the point of showing him arrive Yeah, because they show him later at his mom's house, and he's looking for his mom, and he doesn't find his mom, but he finds like a kid zombie.
Yeah.
That's like cutting through the doors and shit. And like he doesn't want to shoot him because he's a kid. They don't express that. I'm just filling that in.
You have to, yeah, because he has the
gun, and he's like pointing at him, and then he keeps backing up and like throwing stuff at him, and then he ends up just running down the street with a gun in his hand and a knapsack full of whatever he stole from his mom's place. He had like a
participation trophy or something like that. I don't know what the hell that was.
That doesn't come up later.
No, it doesn't. He just grabs like a pillow sack full of stuff and just leaves his semi parked out in the front.
And then then the next time you see him, he drives up and he's in a full Santa suit. Like it's
so
like,
random.
Nothing that they showed in that entire scene mattered at all.
I think that's, talking about the Christmas aspect, I wish they would have done more Christmas stuff to at least add a little bit of flavor to it.
They had some stuff, but it was weak. Like they had decorations up in the windows or whatever, and then the radio was like, "Can you believe it's only 10 days till Christmas? Get your shopping in. The parking lots are gonna be full," or whatever, which is ironic because you can see like 2 cars in the whole movie. But it's like they tried a little bit, but so much of this movie is like they tried an idea and then they just kind of plopped it out on the concrete for you, like here, and they didn't do anything to develop it. But,
well, yeah, that's kind of the weird thing, because you look at films like, I don't know, like Gremlins or something that, like, isn't inherently a Christmas film, but definitely gives you like the Christmas spirit through a lot of stuff like that. I felt like they could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, they did a whole fucking shopping spree scene, and they didn't think it was like, well, what if it was like Macy's during Christmas or whatever, and it'd have the trees up, and then that would have been more of a fun. It wasn't. I mean, it's LA, so I guess you can't really have it as a snowy like Christmas, but it's I mean, I felt like they wanted the audience to feel like this is kind of Christmas vibe, but like. You only kind of get it whenever you remember, oh yeah, it is Christmas.
Yeah, like you see Garland in the background, or you see Hector dressed up as Santa Claus. Because literally see him dressed up as Santa Claus, I'm like,
oh yeah,
that wasn't something I was expecting. It's only
talking about it now that I remembered, like, oh yeah, it was Christmas, that's why he was dressed up as Santa Claus. I thought he was just doing it to be funny, because he loves putting on costumes for some reason.
Dude, oh my god, yeah, because,
I wouldn't be surprised if he's not actually a trucker, and that was just the first costume that you see him in.
No, because it's crazy, because, like, he shows up to the radio station or whatever, and the girls are at the mall, where they ran into that gang, which turns out to be like stock boys there.
Yeah.
Which I will give credit to that guy, Willie or whatever that's on his jacket. He was definitely a nutcase. Like, they just let him be as goofy as they want him to be.
He was like... He was almost cringe in a good way, but it was kind of cringe in a bad way. Still at the end. But I like what they were going for. I like the attempt.
Yeah, because he's definitely creepy, cringy, sort of stuff like that, but it was both good and bad.
Yeah.
And so even before mentioning Hector gets to the radio station, I gotta talk about that gunfight. That was the most wild-ass gunfight I've seen.
The whole department store scene was so... corny.
It was,
but it was also kind of great in some aspects.
Yeah, well, and it's so bad because like the action was great at times and just god awful at some times, where it's just like literally like you see like it just like shoes barely falling over during like the chaos or something like that. But then it's like whenever someone breaks out a shotgun, you literally see a mannequin like have an explosion. Like you see the fire and everything of the explosion. I'm like, oh my god.
It's great. Yeah, so like they both have guns at this point, Samantha and Regina, but like I guess Samantha loses her gun somewhere, and then these guys come out of the stock room and they all have guns and they're trying to like blast them, I guess, because they're crazy infected with the Comet juice. And it's a perfect example of how this film goes, where it like has an idea and then it just like falls flat. Where like Samantha just like Regina's trying to get a shot on him, and Samantha just like starts throwing shoes, and they turn and just start blasting up the couch that she's behind. And it's like, okay, that was like kind of a funny bit for Samantha or whatever, but then she throws shoes like 2 more times in the sequence, and it's like it takes up way too much time, and like it's not funny. It was hardly like, you kind of smile at it the first time, and then the second time you're just like, all right, come on.
Yeah, they're just repeating the same
and
shot.
she's just throwing it like while they turn with the guns pointed on her, and they wait for her to throw all of her shoes before they start shooting. It's just like,
yeah, it just felt like a video game, or like video game and Looney Tunes, because literally Regina at one point poses as a mannequin before trying to shoot him,
like a Scooby-Doo sequence.
Yeah. But they're just doing crazy stuff anyways, because even before that, they're just bored out of their mind and they're just shooting a car with a gun.
Yeah.
Like, they're just
that kind of stuff I get, because it's just like, it's the apocalypse. So
but then they're saved by the scientists, because they're like, they must be the cure to this disease going around, like these survivors. And so they end up shooting all the guys down quickly, and it's like, okay, cool. They're taking it, and they kept focusing on the one scientist gal,
Audrey,
or something like that. Audrey White, yeah. I can't believe you remembered the name. All I remember is White on the name tag and everything. About her like disapproval of like, we don't need to get these survivors or whatever. And he's like, nonsense. They would be of great asset to us, doing that, and. The most jarring scene that happens initially whenever they find the girls. They're just basically talking to them. And first they diss it off. It's like, of course these would be the survivors.
Right.
Like these dumb girls or whatever. But then I guess like they don't really explain it. But like Regina goes off on the helicopter with the scientists alone, leaving Samantha there. And then Samantha saying like, yeah, we'll wait for Hector there.
Well, they drop one line that references their reasoning, and it's really stupid, and they really should have made it clearer. But the balding scientist guy with the glasses that stays behind with Audrey, she's like, yeah, there's no doubt about it. We don't need to do a blood test. Like, she's infected or whatever. Like, and because she has the rash, I guess, because she was. But they not even like. They don't do a lot of rash makeup or anything. The way they communicate that Samantha has a rash is like one time she starts scratching herself and she's like, I think I have a rash.
Yeah, that, or like, you've drank 19 Pepsis. Like, you're going to ruin your complexion. She's like, it's already ruined with this rash.
Yeah.
Doing that or whatever.
So, then like they stay behind to like watch for Hector or whatever. But then Dr. Audrey White or whatever is like, injects her with some shit to kill her, and then puts her down, and then it's like, oh, the researchers are the bad guys because they're killing the survivors. And he's like, oh, what did you want me to do? Take her out back and shoot her or whatever?
It was just random, because like even watching the scene, I'm just like, holy hell, they just killed this woman there. So it was just jarring in that regard or whatever, but not even in a good
Not even in like,
way.
Oh, that was a twist. It was just like, what are they doing?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I guess she's dead. Gotcha. And then Audrey shoots the other guy scientist or whatever. And then whenever it cuts to Hector arriving at the radio station in Santa gear with presents, the scientist chick is just there on the couch being like, yeah, I wrote everything on a notepad. Your friends are gone. Also, you are cute. Or whatever. It's just...
then she injects herself with the thing and dies,
I guess just to pass on the information in hopes that he would arrive, because whenever he does head to the facility, this is the most wild thing, because we see like the car pull up, and so I'm like, okay, clearly it's him, and surely there's going to be some scheme to where he tries to get in, but no, he's dressed up as a cowboy.
For no apparent reason.
No apparent reason, and he's able to trick this guard multiple times into getting closer to the vehicle, just being like, you like girls?
I got one in the trunk.
Yeah, exactly, and it pops up, and then it's Samantha's body, but turns out she's actually alive.
Yeah, and they do a quick explainer. Literally, the moment you realize she's alive is she wakes up and then explains why she wasn't dead.
Yeah.
Because the guy's like, that's a dead body. And she wakes up. She's like, nope, they injected me with a specific drug name, I forget the name of, to make me look like I was dead to fool that other guy. Bam! Or whatever. And then she's... I'm like, wow, that's great writing.
It's just so odd and bizarre. It's just... I don't know. I was just like... Okay, because they even do have a moment whenever they, like, the jig is up, whenever they're trying to review Regina about how many diseases she has or whatever. And she makes so many jokes during it. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Or whatever, where it's just like, yeah, okay. But then they're like, yeah, your sister's dead. Yeah, she's dead. Anyways. And you don't even get to see her be upset. Per se. Yeah.
She's like, because, yeah, she keeps asking about the sister, and they're like, well, have you ever had pneumonia? And she's like, what's happened to my sister? What's going on, guys?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And then they're like, your sister's dead.
Yeah, and so
sorry for your loss.
Literally the raid should feel like a lot more eventful and impactful, but really it just kind of fizzled out. It honestly gave me Halloween 3 vibes.
Yeah, honestly,
towards with that whole facility there and everything.
But even that felt like a little more like a dungeon they were crawling through.
Yes, it did, as opposed to this one where there's like, we're here and we're out.
Yeah, and like... Yeah. You don't really get a sense of the place. I mean, they give some cool shots of the hallways or whatever. They're like, yeah, this is a crazy science lab or whatever. But really, it's... I don't know. There's too much stupid shit in between, too. They like, introduce these 2 kids just so that they have to, like, break these kids out, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's... I don't know.
It's dumb.
I think they only had kids just so they could have the family bit at the end.
Probably.
Where they get to pretend like they're a big family. But it's just random like this siege, because the plan was, I guess, going into this, Hector has a jerry can and 2 wads of dynamite.
Yeah.
That's what he has going on, and he's able to take out the majority of the scientists, all because they get compacted in a car.
Yeah, the 2 scientists. He takes out 2 scientists by rigging dynamite to it and getting them to start the car. And they get in, and he's like, does this smell like dynamite? Or does it smell like gasoline to you? And then he's like, turns the key, and they explode. I was like, all right. Good work, cowboy.
Yeah. And then they even try to do one last jump scare where, like, one of the scientists that's now, like, a zombie tries dragging the kids away, but they shoot him off camera.
Yeah.
And...
that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally the end of the conflict for the
It's honestly kind of surprising because, like I said, there's like funny, silly moments like the shopping spree with like girls want to have fun, Hector in a Santa Claus outfit, like literally punching and slapping each other. But aside from like a lot of that stuff there, it is just genuinely kind of nothing. Like they do try to add like a love relationship to Hector and Regina, but it is so forced.
Yeah,
it is so forced and unbelievable.
A single person in the audience cares. They tried to have a little bit of like a sisterly rivalry dynamic because there was a moment where Samantha was mad. She's like, "You always steal all my boys, and then there's the last boy on Earth, and you steal him too." But like that didn't turn like nothing. All the ideas that they try to put forth turn into nothing.
Yeah, it just. And even just by the end, like, the resolution is just also just kind of weak, where I guess Hector and Regina act like the parents of these 2 kids, and they're abiding by the laws of civilization, because there needs to be rules in place.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whenever Samantha's like, this is silly, I'm not going to follow the rules, she almost gets hit by a car, and it turns out it's another random survivor who was inadvertently mentioned at the beginning because Regina's like, who got this high score on this machine?
Yeah, DMR or whatever. And then he drives away in a license plate that says DMR. He also said he stole 23 cars, though, so is that him, or did he just take that person's car?
I love how nonchalant that is, like, I got 23 cars. Like, it's just like a weird...
That was actually kind of a funny line. She's like, nice car. He's like, thanks, I got 23.
Yes, doing that. I don't know, and then they just have, like, the room moment where they're just playing football in the middle of the street, because you gotta abide by the rules.
Right, except now.
Unless you forget!
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. There's definitely just a couple of nuggets of camp, but it's not satiated enough. Like...
I feel like it could have been something.
It could have been.
The plot with the scientist thing, that could have been a little more focused on... I mean, because listen to me describe this in brief, right? Imagine if this was the whole movie, all right? Apocalypse happens. Comet comes. Everybody's wiped out. Nobody knows why, but there was a group of crazy prepper scientists that knew this was going to happen, and they were underground the whole time. But... something's a little mysterious with the main scientist lady. She's wearing sunglasses the whole time. She's looking a little pale, and she's shown like losing her memory in the beginning. And you're like, what's going on? You know what I mean? But overall, they seem like they're here to help. They come in, they save the day in a tense moment where it seems like the main characters are about to die and where there was actual danger and not the goofy shit that we saw. And then, they swoop them away and they're doing all these tests and they're like, wow, they would really be able to cure. And we were worried about Samantha this whole time because maybe she has the disease and she didn't know it and they're going to cure her. But then they kill her. And you're like, oh, fuck. And then it turns out, the scientist lady that was doing this whole cure shit the whole time, was double backstabbing because then she backstabs all the preppers because they're actually fucked up and they're turning into zombies. But she knows she is too. She's saving civilization by killing her own people to save these survivors the whole time. You know what I mean? I feel like there was something there. There was something that could have been juiced. But none of it was tied together with anything besides old dusty Band-Aids. And so what we got was the kind of basically garbage that we watched. But
yeah, that definitely would have been a better movie in all honesty.
there could have been more zombies. We saw like one real one and then one in a dream and then the rest were just like the scientist people and the people in the fucking montage. I don't know. It just wasn't that. Nothing was scary. No stakes were ever present.
No, it was just pretty weak, I would say, overall there, so.
But the outfits were cool, so.
Yeah, outfits, great. Like I said, the 80s aesthetic, full blast. I especially love Samantha's Converse, where it's like half pink, half blue there. Like, that was just like,
and when they go shopping, and then Regina's in that, like, black dress with her big old hair out, and it has giant poofy shoulder pads, and she's holding, like, a fucking Mac 10 or something, and it's like, she's, it's a cool vibe. It's just, like, wish the movie was cool to match it.
Unfortunately, you can throw as much 80 sprinkles as you want. We still need some cake to have with it. Bro, I don't know if there's anything else I could or want to mention with the film, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty at the end of the rope for this one.
Yeah, we'll just dive into the next teaser here. Is going to be talking about the film we're going to be watching next for the podcast. So we're going back 8 years to the year 1976 here. It's a notorious horror film directed by Richard Donner, and it's 2 words, and it's, to describe it, the definition of this word is a sign of something really good, but mostly really bad to come.
The Omen?
Yes, you nailed it right there.
Boom,
just boom, bam, hit it out of the park. Just so kudos.
Yeah.
I'm glad we could work that through together and everything. So we're going to be checking that out. So thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We'll see y'all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary with The Omen.
Very ominous.
Oh, man. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColkirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary.